I want to talk a little bit about what happens inside and then what happens for folks when they get outside. And I'll stay with you for a moment, Sam. Are we doing enough when folks are incarcerated, whether that be in jail, prison, or both in many instances, to ensure that they don't come back?
I don't know. I think you can armchair that issue to death in the sense that, well, I wish we'd have had this program. I wish we'd have had this program. I can't tell you specifically all the programs in the prison system nor in the jail. I do know there are some programs. I mean, the largest mental health provider in the state right now is MDC. When I say mental health provider,
That's been true for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean that's where so many people are. I think we can do better on all those things. I think we can do better. Listen, we can do better when it comes to juveniles, when it comes to adults in our system. We, of course, know that most of them are not in for life. Most of them are going to get out. And we have a community that they have to live in, abide by the laws and norms, and we have to ensure we're doing our best we can as a community, as a society, to get them ready for that, even if it is after 30 years. I mean, I will tell you, we've convicted over 280 people of murder in Bernalillo County in the last 2 years. 280 people, that's a hell of a lot of people. And they're going to do a long time in prison. Some of them may get out. Many won't. But some of them will, just because of the length of their sentences. And of course, we all hope that they're doing something productive in there so that they are ready when they do come out. And whatever productive life, they are humans. We have to remember that.
Peter, who is in the prisons and jails in this state, and what should the state's role be when they get out in terms of ensuring that they don't do something that sends them back?
Well, there's no question that people who get incarcerated in our state, as with other states, are almost always people who come from families of limited means. And 90% of the people incarcerated in our Albuquerque jail are intoxicated and under the influence of something at the moment of their arrest. And so I would say that those are the two populations who most frequently get themselves incarcerated: people who are poor, people who use substances. And so I do want to just shift the lens a little bit, because I can't take, and I don't take issue with what you're saying, Sam, that people who commit violent offenses need to be separated for however long it takes to keep other people safe. And so I know I'm going to shock some people to say, I want some people who are on the streets today to be behind bars soon. I am not someone who thinks there's no place for incarceration. But what I think is much more important in the long run is, what are we going to do with people who are poor, who are in substance abusing families, who get in trouble when they're young? And I think that the lack of social services and the lack of behavioral health services that we don't provide to children and adolescents from those backgrounds, who, once they first have some difficulty at school, even before there was a justice involvement, is the big problem that we haven't yet talked about.
It's shocking.
I was a special
it's
ed
bad.
teacher before.
I agree with you.
I was a special ed teacher before I went to law school. And then the child welfare system, I spent decades, I created, together with Ella Joan Fenoglio, Advocacy Inc. to provide lawyers to children who are in the CYFD system. Back in those days, it was the Human Service Department that ran child welfare. Our child welfare system just has been horrible since before it was called CYFD. And so I do think that we need to commit ourselves to improving that first and foremost, because many an adolescent and even younger child, if they had gotten social services, behavioral health services, and support when they were young, they never would have become juvenile offenders. And so I do think that that is something that we have to keep our eye on. Throwing money at it won't work, but honestly, I was at a hearing recently where the secretary of CYFD was talking about the fact that they had asked for more social workers and more money for assistants to take the workload off of their CYFD placement workers and have administrators do it. The legislature didn't actually grant their appropriation that was requested by the administration. And so this year, our governor has asked for substantial increases there, and I think we should do that. And I want to thank the governor for doing that, because we do need to resource that department. I have a family member who was a CYFD social worker until recently because she couldn't take the stress any longer. And so I think we need to take care of the young and the adolescents much, much better when they're from families that have these challenges of poverty and substance abuse. I think that in the long run is more important than anything we do later on.
Sam, I want to give you the last word here, and I want to go back to kids.
Yeah.
I want to just take this for a second out of the context of government, the legal system, or any other thing related to people whose names are on ballots. What needs to happen as a community to help the kids who live here?
A couple things on that. First of all, you can go back to what Peter just said. I totally agree with him on the systemic root causes of this, right? With education as well as poverty, all those issues, and what are we doing to help those kids who don't get the same cards dealt to them that many of us did when we were young kids. I think at the end of the day, though, we as a community need to recognize the fact that, and by the way, I don't want to throw the key away on any kid. That's not what I'm talking about here. But we do need to build in consequences. I've already talked about that. But, you know, as parents, and I've been out to a lot of high schools talking to a lot of kids, a lot of gymnasiums full of entire high schools. This is so much of a different time than when I was growing up. We didn't have social media when I was growing up. Kids didn't flash a gun in a picture and get a bunch of likes and think that's how they become popular. So I think we as a community, we as family, we as parents and grandparents and relatives, know what's in your kid's backpack, the simple things. Know what's in your kid's backpack when they go to school. Know what's in their car when they're driving their car. Know what's on their social media app. We have to stay involved with our kids because, my God, the last thing we want them to do is to end up in the criminal justice system, and worse, end up in criminal violent situations where they're either the victim or the perpetrator.
We'll leave it there. Sam Bregman, Peter Kubra, thank you both. And I want to do this again somewhat soon, if you'll both agree.
I'm fine with that. I enjoyed it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks to you both.